Welcome back, brothers and sisters. In the heart of ancient Greece, within the solemnity of a courtroom echoing with murmurs, a pivotal moment in history unfolds. The philosopher Socrates stands accused, his words of defense resounding across the millennia. This account, inscribed in the annals of history, is a story most of us are familiar with. It's the one narrated by Plato, Socrates' most famous student, a version that's been dissected, studied, and discussed from every angle. But what if I told you that there's another perspective on this story, one that's often overshadowed and overlooked? Meet Xenophon, a historian, a soldier, and another student of Socrates. His account of the same trial, while less known, provides a unique lens through which we can revisit this fascinating event. If you've watched our earlier video on the famous trial, you might be wondering, why another one? Why revisit the same event? The answer lies in perspective. Different observers provide unique insights, adding layers to our understanding of history. So here's my invitation to you. Come, journey with us as we explore the version they didn't tell you about, discover the untold nuances and the lesser-known facts of this historical event. Socrates' Trial by Xenophon. Of all the stories about Socrates, one stands out to me. The moment he was summoned to court and had to ponder not only his defense but also the end of his life. Many have written about this, highlighting Socrates' grand way of speaking, which, frankly, he was known for, but they often overlook one critical point. Socrates was ready to embrace death, viewing it as preferable to life. This might make him sound reckless or arrogant, but that's not the whole story. Thanks to Hermogenes, a close friend of Socrates, we get a fuller picture. He told us that Socrates, instead of obsessing over his upcoming trial, was busy chatting about almost anything else. So Hermogenes straight up asked him, "Shouldn't you be planning your defense?" Socrates, being Socrates, replied, "Haven't I been preparing my defense my whole life?" Confused, Hermogenes asked, "What do you mean?" Socrates simply said, "I've spent my entire life doing no wrong. That's the best defense strategy anyone could have." Getting back to the point, Hermogenes asked, "Don't you see, Socrates, how juries in Athens often end up sentencing innocent people to death based on a persuasive argument, or let the guilty walk free because of a sympathetic plea or a nicely turned phrase?" In response, Socrates said, "Look, I've tried twice to plan my defense, but each time something divine stops me." When Hermogenes expressed his surprise, Socrates continued, "Is it really that strange that God might think it's best for me to die now? Don't you realize that up until this moment, I don't believe anyone's had a better life than I have? I've spent my life in virtue and justice, which has been pretty awesome, and my friends and acquaintances seem to agree. But if I were to keep on living," Socrates continued, "I know I'd have to face the problems of old age. I'd see less, hear less, learn slower, and forget more. I'd also have to deal with the knowledge that I'm not what I used to be. Now, how is that something to look forward to? Maybe God, in his kindness, is letting me end my life now, while I'm still in good shape, and by the most peaceful means possible. Because if I get the death sentence, it's clear that I'll be allowed to die. A death that those who've looked into it agree is not only the easiest, but also causes the least burden to my friends and will make them miss me even more. After all, it's only natural to miss and long for someone who leaves no unpleasant or discomforting memories behind, but who, while still in good physical health and mentally at peace, simply fades away." Continuing his thought, Socrates added, "Looking back, the gods probably did the right thing by stopping me when I was trying to figure out what to say to defend myself. You all thought the main goal was to find a way to dodge the conviction, right? But if I had managed that, it's pretty clear that I'd have signed up, not for the peaceful end that awaits me, but for a slow decline marred by sickness or old age, both of which come with a truckload of issues that are far from enjoyable. Trust me," he went on, "I'm not eager to live just for the sake of living. If I end up annoying the court by going on and on about how grateful I am for the blessings I've received from the gods and from people, and by declaring the high opinion I have of myself, I'd still prefer death over groveling pathetically for a few more years of a depleted life over a peaceful death." According to Hermogenes, when Socrates was accused of disrespecting the state's gods, introducing new ones, and corrupting the youth, he didn't back down. He stood up and said, "First off, I can't understand why Meletus claims that I don't recognize the state's gods. Anyone who's seen me at festivals or at public altars could tell you that I do sacrifice to them, including Meletus, if he cared to look. As for introducing new gods, how am I doing that when all I say is that I hear a divine voice guiding me on what to do? Don't those who interpret bird signs or human words also listen to voices? Isn't thunder an omen, a sort of voice? And the priestess at Pytho, doesn't she also deliver the gods' messages through her voice? Everyone agrees that the gods know the future and give signs of what's going to happen. just like I do. The only difference is that while others talk about bird signs and soothsayers, I refer to it as a divine voice. In doing so, I believe I'm being more precise and respectful than those who attribute the god's power to birds. And I'm not making this up. I've shared the divine messages with many friends, and not once have I been proven to be a liar or misguided. As Socrates spoke, the judges stirred uncomfortably, some skeptical of his claims, others simply jealous that Socrates was apparently getting special treatment from the divine. Not backing down, Socrates continued, "Hold on, let me tell you something else that'll make it even harder for those of you who are inclined to believe I'm favored by the gods." Once, in front of a bunch of witnesses, my friend Xenophon asked the oracle at Delphi about me. Apollo responded that no human being was more generous, upright, or self-disciplined than me. When the judges reacted, predictably, with even more disbelief, Socrates went on, "Now listen to this. The god once said something even grander about Lycurgus, the great Spartan lawgiver, than about me." The story goes that as Lycurgus walked into the temple, the god wasn't sure whether to call him a god or a man. The god didn't go that far with me, but he did say that when it comes to excellence, I outshine all other men. But don't just take my word or even the god's word for it. Look at the facts. Do you know anyone less controlled by bodily desires than me? Can you point out someone more self-reliant who refuses to accept gifts or payment from others? Who's more fair than someone who's so content with what he has that he doesn't covet anything else? And who would you say is wiser than a person who's never stopped seeking and learning good things since he was able to comprehend spoken words? The proof that I haven't been wasting my time is that so many citizens who value virtue, as well as many foreigners, choose my company over others. Even though everyone knows I can't repay them with money, they still want to give me gifts. And while no one's asked me to pay them back for their kindness, loads of people feel grateful to me. Think about this. During the siege, while others were feeling sorry for themselves, I was no worse off than when the city was prosperous. And while others spend loads on market delicacies, I enjoy the delights of the mind that cost nothing and are way more satisfying. If no one can prove I'm lying about any of this, isn't it clear that the praise I receive from gods and men is well deserved? Yet despite all of this, Meletus, you accuse me of corrupting the youth. We all know what that implies. So tell us, if you can, anyone who's become irreligious, wasteful, a drunk or lazy, or succumbed to other evil pleasures because of my influence. Well, for heaven's sake, Meletus shot back, you've persuaded people to listen to you more than even their own parents. That's true, Socrates admitted, especially when it comes to education, because they know I've studied it. In matters of health, people often trust their doctor more than their parents. In the assembly, Athenians listen to those who offer the most sensible arguments, not their relatives. And don't you choose your generals based on their military wisdom, not their family ties? Of course, Socrates, Meletus responded. That's the practical and usual thing to do. So doesn't it strike you as odd, Socrates asked, that in all regular affairs, the best people are given not just an equal chance but a preference? But when some people consider me an expert in our greatest treasure, education, you charge me with a capital crime? There was more to the argument, of course, both from Socrates himself and his friends who defended him, but I didn't aim to cover every detail of the trial. I wanted to show that Socrates prioritized reverence towards the divine and fairness towards humans above all. He didn't see death as something to avoid desperately. In fact, he thought it was his time to die. His stance became even clearer after he lost the case. When asked to suggest an alternative penalty, he wouldn't propose one, nor would he let his friends propose one for him, saying it was like admitting guilt. And when his friends tried to help him escape from prison, he refused. He even made a joke, asking if they knew a place outside Attica where death was not allowed. As the trial wrapped up, Socrates stood firm. The ones who coerced witnesses into perjury, into testifying falsely against me, they know deep down they've committed a grave injustice. But why should I feel any less proud now than before the verdict, when I've not been proven guilty of the accusations thrown at me? There's no evidence I've worshipped new gods instead of Zeus and Hera and their divine company. I've not sworn oaths to any other gods. And how exactly did I corrupt the young? By encouraging them towards bravery and modest living. My accusers can't even allege I committed crimes punishable by death like temple robbery, breaking and entering, slave trafficking or treason. So I'm left wondering how you concluded that I deserve death. And my innocence being overlooked doesn't tarnish me, but those who condemned me. Like Palamedes, who met a fate similar to mine, I find comfort. His story is far more inspiring than that of Odysseus, who unjustly killed him. I know time will bear witness that I never harmed anyone or made them worse off. but always tried to teach freely every good thing within my power to those who engaged with me." And with that he left the courtroom, his demeanour reflecting his words, a shine in his eyes, an assertive posture, a steady stride. Noticing his followers in tears, he asked, "Why cry now? Haven't you always known that death was my fate, a decree set by nature from the day I was born? If I was dying young while life was still full of blessings, sure, that would be sad. But if I'm ending my life just as hardships loom, then I believe you all should feel encouraged and celebrate my good luck." There was this man, Apollodorus, a devoted follower of Socrates, but otherwise rather naive. He said, quite innocently, "The hardest part, Socrates, is to see you killed unjustly." Socrates, with a gentle touch, caressed the young man's head. "Would it have been easier, my dear friend, to see me sentenced justly instead?" His smile was soft, even in this trying time. It's also said that Socrates, spotting Anytus passing by, commented, "Look at the confidence in his stride. He probably believes he's done something noble, sentencing me to death just because I told him it's not fitting for him to have his son work in a tannery when he's revered so highly in our society. He's so misguided. He doesn't realize that between us, the one who leaves the best and noblest legacy will be the true victor. Homer tells us some people can foresee the future as death nears. So let me make a prediction. I spent a brief time with Anytus' son. He seemed spirited, but without a dedicated friend and guide, he's likely to fall into destructive habits." His prophecy came true. The young man fell prey to the indulgence of alcohol, drank incessantly, and eventually became a burden to his city, his friends, and himself. As for Anytus, even after his death, his bad reputation lived on due to his poor parenting and lack of compassion. Socrates' self-praise may have sparked the court's envy, leading them to vote against him. Yet I still see his fate as a blessing. He encountered the most gentle of deaths and avoided the painful part of life. What an opportunity he had to display his true strength. Just as he never shunned life's pleasures, he faced death without a hint of fear, but rather welcomed it with joy. Whenever I reflect on his wisdom and nobility, I can't help but remember and praise him. If there is anyone who has found a more valuable mentor in their journey towards virtue, I congratulate them as they're truly fortunate. And so, we conclude another journey through time, walking in the shadows of a great mind. The words of Socrates in a modernized form remind us that the wisdom of the past can still speak to us, here in the present. If this exploration sparked a curiosity in you, we have a wealth of historical journeys awaiting your attention. The Legendary Lore channel is to become a treasure trove, a modern library, if you will, filled with narratives from the past, retold for today's seekers of knowledge. You can ensure you never miss these enlightening narratives by simply choosing to stay notified. I'd love for you to join our community of knowledge seekers. As we part ways for now, remember, in the words of Socrates, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. Continue to question, continue to learn, and continue to grow. Thank you for listening.